Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to another metagame breakdown. This week particularly late, but unfortunately out of my control. There were some holdups and issues on the side of mobalytics for putting the data out. So this data is going from the 1st of March till the 8th of March. So basically from 1.5 weeks ago to like half a week ago. In the future, they changed their release schedule for the data from Friday to Sunday. So I will try to get this to you by Monday or Tuesday in the future. But this week we are particularly late. The data got released about 24 hours ago or a little less. And it took me a while to prepare the video and find the time to record it. So sorry about that. But it's pretty interesting and pretty cool what we will see this week. So before we dive right in, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button down below, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content like these metagame breakdowns, Runeterra deck techs, and so on. But let's take a look. So, Ezreal kept rising through the ranks the last couple of weeks and now has finally sort of peaked. It is the most popular deck in this data set, which kind of is representative. If you think back like half a week to 1.5 weeks ago from playing, the deck was very present. You played against it a lot from my experience. Actually, by now it kind of went down a bunch again, I think. So the hype died down a bit, but this very well reflects my experience at the time. So let me know in the comments if it also reflects yours. Noteworthy here, this list is the most popular one, which is the list that Swim played, and I think around that period or a bit before that period actually took to rank 8 and made a video about. So a lot of people copy him. The most popular versions of lists usually are more of a reflection of like lists that did well by prominent people or just lists advocated by prominent content creators. So that once again shows how much of an influence they have. I'm not an expert on the archetype, but I'm a bit skeptical of some of the things in this list. Like for example, only one get excited is something that I'm very suspicious of. Just from like my experience, especially against the deck, simply because the deck just gets into a lot of spots where it just has to kill you from 20, and I had a lot of games where I was like 17, 18, 19, 20 health and was threatening lethal with an open attack, and the only way to die is basically the opponent having everything, and that usually included one or multiple get exciteds. And without those, the kill is often not possible. Also, it's a very decent removal. So yeah, not convinced that running less than 3 is actually the right choice. Noteworthy, I made a small mistake by copying the list. The one Tavern Keeper is, I think, a more recent addition. The most popular list still had 3 Sentry, but I think lately Swim's list has one Kindly Tavern Keeper, I think over the second Marksman. I'm not 100% sure, so might want to check that on his tier list if you want to copy that list. But yeah, the deck was still going strong. I think it's still going fairly strong, but I would guess in the next dataset we will see it declining again after having hit this massive popularity spike here. Given my experience in the last week or so in how much or rather how little I faced it. But we'll see how that turns out in data. People have adapted more to the prominence of Ezreal with more aggressive decks and stuff like that. Anyway, on to the second most popular deck. It's Karma Control. The Shadow Isles Karma Control has really blown up. I think this might be the old list by Alanskew before he made some changes. By now he's running some Thresh, I think. He completely cut the Darkwater Scourge Deathmark package is playing monks and stuff, so I'm not 100% sure if this is his old list or someone else's list, but both Alan Skew and Pokrovak, I think both have abandoned Scourge Deathmark in their lists, Pokrovak being top 10 on all 3 servers currently, and Alan Skew having reached rank 1 once or multiple times on EU with this list or similar lists. So if you want to like stay up to date on the archetypes, you really gotta like make sure you're following the right accounts on Twitter and checking the like website at the Decklist Hub websites and stuff like this. But yeah, the deck has really grown in popularity since the last data set. I think it more than doubled. I think last time it was like in the like 1,000 to 1,300 range or something, and now it has hit close to 3,000 games played. Second most popular deck. We'll also see later in the win rate section how the deck is doing, but the deck also has gained a lot of win percentage. Like last data sets, I think I was slightly above 50%, 50 point something, and now we have surpassed the 55% win rate mark. Also noteworthy, Ezreal's win rate has gone up by 0.5%, which is a notable amount given that we have a really high sample size. So going up 0.5% in win rate is something of note, I think, and shows that maybe people have gotten better at the deck. The deck might have been slightly better positioned, and similar with Karma Control. I think a lot of this actually has to do with the evolution in the archetype, that the list's becoming a lot better for Karma Control, which has done a lot for the win rate. People are playing it more, getting better at it, and so on and so forth. Anyway, on to number 3. Third most popular deck is still Elusive's. The list here is 1 card off from the most popular list in the sheets, actually, since I'm currently cutting the 3rd Protector to play 2 Deny and 3 Will of Ionia. The most popular list only has 3 Will and 1 Deny, but I really think you want at least the 2 Deny in the deck, since it just makes certain matchups much more winnable, to a point where you draw a Deny, you just win against the Ruination decks, for example, like Karma Control. And it can still make the difference between getting burned out by Ezreal or just winning the game before they can kill you. Although I would still recommend the Noxus Splash over the Freljord Splash from my deck tech. If you want to learn more about it, make sure to check out my Elusive's deck tech, where I talk about all the splash options that I tested, my experience and results with them, and what I learned from the results and the testing, and why I recommend the Noxus Splash over Freljord. But yeah, the deck is still very popular. I think by now we will see in the next data set that its popularity dropped further. I'm really not seeing it a lot in Master, so it's really not that popular. I think people have just kind of grown sick of it. There are new interesting decks to try, and the deck is worse positioned. It lost about 5% in win rate from like 61 point something to 56 point something, which is pretty noteworthy. Not sure what exactly caused it. It's probably at least partially positioning in the metagame. It might also have to do that people like Sixo, which have been playing the deck non-stop and doing really well with it, hitting rank 1 once or multiple times, are playing a lot of other stuff. So some of the like most successful players that play a ton of games with the deck are not contributing as much anymore, but that probably only does so much. But yeah, I actually think right now the deck is already starting to be really well positioned again. Last time I tried it, I did really well with it again, as opposed to around the time of this data being recorded. Every time I tried the deck, it really just didn't do that well and like felt kind of mediocrely positioned. So it kind of reflects my experience at the time, but I think by now we already kind of moved past that point again. So it's a good time to pick up the deck and play it and give it another shot, I think. And the next most popular deck is still Fearsome Rally. We also seen some evolution here. The Demacia Splash is basically down to 2 Pursuit in a lot of lists. Some people, like Sixo in his tournament list, are still playing 2 Guardian as well. This list is a bit weird. I have no idea where it's coming from, and I honestly wouldn't recommend it. Playing 1 Ruination and 2 Grasp is really weird. Both cards are not very good, especially in this deck, and don't make a lot of sense. I guess Ruination can randomly catch the opponent off guard if they don't know it's in the deck, but it's still very situational and often gonna sit in your hand being useless. If you want to look at good versions, I would recommend checking out Tilted's EU Creator Invitational winning list or Sixo's list from his Korean lineup, both leaning into like Harrowing and Miscall, minimal splashes, and just trying to abuse Hackerim and Racecaller as much as possible to overwhelm the opponent with board presence and power, and just even punching through multiple Ruinations and other grinding tools very effectively. But yeah, the deck is not going anywhere. It keeps being popular. I think it's not as great anymore, but even win rate wise, the deck is still doing alright. It's like, it also has dropped notable amounts. I think it was like 58% last time. Now it's only like 55%. So it's really losing ground, losing positioning, but not to a point where it loses popularity or relevance. But in terms of its win rate, it's more in a tier 2 win rate thing than the like top tier win rate that it used to have even past the patch. Alright, on to the next one. The last deck of the top 5 most popular decks is Silburn. So the deck really seems to not go away. Some minor changes here, basically from last week. The list now has 3 Draven and 3 Static Shock and only 1 Blade's Edge instead of 3. Not sure whose list this is. Might be the latest list by like All New Bagels and Gumi. I haven't seen this specific list, so I don't exactly know where these changes come from, but that would be my guess. The deck actually is doing better than before in terms of win rate. We'll take a look at that later. But popularity is as low as it has been for the last the past 2 data sheets, where it was higher in popularity, but it still made it into the top 5 and is kind of sticking around and actually like picking up steam in terms of its performance, even though its popularity is losing ground, which might be connected in the sense that it's losing popularity, so people are playing more decks that are vulnerable to it, which makes its win rate go up. Also, the popularity of Ezreal is a contributing factor here, I think, because Burn is really good against Ezreal, and with Ezreal being the most popular deck, it makes sense that there's more good matchups for the Burn to play on and increase its win rate against the field. And now we're gonna move on to the top 5 highest win rate decks. Gonna see some interesting developments here as well, but see for yourselves. So first off, interestingly enough, Spider Aggro is still holding the throne of highest win rate deck. Once again, we're looking at decks with 500 or more games played. But yeah, the win rate is still going down a bit. Like, it went from like 63 point something to 62 point something last week, and now we are at 61.4, but it's still like a really high win rate. Also noteworthy here, the most popular list finally reverted back to a more traditional Spiders build, away from the like bad Vlad list that Jones has been messing around with on stream and himself thinks it's bad, but people have been like playing a lot of it anyways, really hurting the like performance of the archetype in a way. But the data set here is still pretty big. Like, Spiders has massively grown in popularity. It actually is the 6th most popular deck. It just barely didn't make it in. Like, there are like 74 more games played of Burn than Spiders, so it's about as popular as Burn. Also makes sense. I'm seeing the deck a lot more again. And yeah, the win rate keeps doing really well. So people really need to take this deck seriously and figure out what the best build is. I like a lot about this build here. What I don't like is more than 9 1-drops. I think these aristocrats should absolutely be Crawling Sensation. It's much better. It lets you use floating mana and stuff. Not a big fan of Decimate. You have your Dariuses already, and Burn is really not that great in a board aggro deck when you already don't really have any reach and you're like beating people down. Arachnoid Sentry is something that we've also seen by some Koreans. I personally think it's time to swap these horrors for Battlecasters. The buff Battlecaster is really, really good in this deck, and I don't think you want more than 9 2-drop units, and Horror is the most replaceable of the bunch and plays really, really well with the otherwise low and aggressive curve. There's also potential to try stuff like Prankster in the deck, just basically replace the Sentry and the 2 Decimates with Pranksters and see how that goes. I also really don't hate going up to like a 3rd Crawling Sensation if you cut the Aristocrat, stuff like that. So there's still some room here. People are still trying to figure out the archetype. So yeah, pretty impressive. Deck keeps crushing it. Then we have a new kid on the block, Bruised by God's Rekindler Demacia. Bruised by God hit rank 1 with this, has been playing the heck out of it. Not sure if this is his latest list. I think by now he might have cut the Citria for a Detain. The last list I've seen was 2 Detain and no Citria, but maybe he reverted back to it again. I'm not 100% sure. But other than that, one change, the list has basically been this for a while. It's also pretty popular actually, like it's really picking up steam. We're almost 1400 games played already, and I think judging by how much I'm seeing it in the next dataset, we'll probably see it in the top 5 most popular decks, I would guess. Rekindler is just one hell of a card and makes even Garen pretty impressive, and Garen is actually a pretty annoying, sticky board advantage tool given his regeneration, and then if the opponent finally managed to get rid of him, you can just get him back and keep smacking people with it. Bannerman and Lancer are really, really powerful cards. The early game drops of Demacia are very good and proven in various shells, and just like a very good support cast. Pretty impressive win rate, especially for a newcomer and a fairly high sample size. So this seems to be the go-to like Bannerman Demacia mid-range deck right now that has surpassed barriers in popularity and performance massively. So if you look into play some Demacia dudes, this is the deck for you. In 3rd place, we actually have the Zed Hackerim Deathmark midrange deck. This list has been the most popular one. It's the one that Swim has been messing with. Honestly, I can't recommend this list. It also hasn't been doing well. Like the archetype is at 59% win rate. This specific list, however, is sitting at a miserable 52% win rate over like 600 games, which is about 1/3 of the sample. So it's really dragging down the win rate. Like without these like 600 games, the win rate would possibly like break the 60% and make it to like 2nd place, maybe even 1st place, depending on how much it impacts the win rate. I'm not sure how much it did. Probably not enough for 1st place. But yeah, anyway, the list you should be playing, I think, is the one by, I think, a Japanese guy called Teal Red. He has hit rank 2 Asia with it, made Master in NA, and then took rank 1 in NA with it, and has changed like 2 cards since from the beginning. He has really been crushing it. I played with the list a bunch. It's really smooth, really well designed. It has like no Islanders, no Keepers, and has a 2nd Deny and a 3rd Will of Ionia, a 3rd Vile Feast. It plays 2 of the Elks that lifelink, which seem a bit underwhelming, but they really do a lot for the deck in terms of being able to raise because you really don't have that much board presence, and it's also he's only on 1 Dawn and Dusk anymore because he basically cut one of the Elks and a Dawn and Dusk to fit the 2 Skitters, which he didn't have before. But yeah, that's a really good list, very proven. The guy has an insane win rate, like way above 70% over multiple hundred games. He posted about it on Twitter, so check it out. This list I cannot recommend. And I think if people pick up the right list more and get better at the deck, since it's not that easy to play, we might see it even better positioned in the future. This deck seems to be the real deal and really, really powerful, and possibly the best Hecarim deck. Next we have the Burn deck, which really, really went up in win rate. Like, it gained 3% win rate. I think it was like 53.9, so it gained like a flat 3% here. As I said, that probably has a lot to do with the rise of Ezreal and popularity, and now the deck finally made it into 4th place in terms of win rate, which is pretty impressive. No major changes here. There are some different ways to approach this list, and by now, especially from the Korean tournament and stuff, we're seeing lists without Draven, with just 3 champions, just Teemo, no Trump Womp, more 1-drops, being really low to the ground, sort of like a red deck win style approach from Magic, just a bunch of 1 and 2 drops and a lot of burn to control the board or finish off the opponent. Less dirtling, no Trump Womps, no Rummages, no Dravens, that sort of stuff. So yeah, still some room to explore here probably, and it's a good time to play burn right now, and still probably is. Like, even right now it's looking pretty decent, although the rise of the Demacia Rekindler deck is really putting a dent into that, so if you're seeing that a lot, you might not want to be playing burn. We'll see how things develop in the next dataset. And last but not least, we have another new kid on the block, Salty Rice's Nox Ezreal deck. He hit rank 1 with it on EU and put it on the map. It's a more proactive, a bit more like aggro controlling playing Ezreal list. Since you don't have the freezes, you have some removal and a bit more like proactive tools. But all in all, it's more or less the same game plan as the other deck. You just have like a bit more beatdown with like a turn 3 Draven and stuff, and Sentry helping you to tempo a bit, and using Draven Axes and Jury Rigs and stuff as card advantage tools with Rummage. One thing that I would consider here is cutting the 2 House Spiders and the Blade's Edge or Jury Rig to play 3 Chempunk. It's a bit worse against Burn specifically, but against Spiders, Chempunk can block Elise, which is really big. Against Elusive, it's a much better threat that they can't just ignore and have to block. It's just overall a more powerful card, while House Spider is kind of bad against Elusive units and against Fearsome units, and pretty underwhelming in a deck like this, so I'm really not too impressed. And I don't know, maybe it's too necessary against Burn, but I'm not sold on that. Other than that, the list looks really nice and really well built. Really like it. So if you want to play something a bit more proactive and different with Ezreal, try this out. Some top players like Alanskew and I think Hyped have been picking this up and liking it and doing well with it. So there's still some evolution going on in the larger Ezreal archetype, and we'll see how things shake out. This is another deck that's new on the block and comes in with a pretty strong win rate for a new deck. The list is also exclusively this. I think from, or actually it's not exclusively this. There's apparently like some variants, but the actually it's mostly this. Like, the win rate is the same between all variants and this list, and I just double checked. There are about like 300 games of 720 something that have a bit of variation that made some changes to it. But deck is performing well. The minor changes have not affected the win rate that people seem to have made. And yeah, pretty strong, especially given that it has like 2% higher win rate than the traditional Ezreal list already. Sure, the sample size is notably smaller, so there's more margin of error, but even when the Freljord Ezreal wasn't as popular over smaller sample sizes, the win rate was weaker, so there might be something here, and this might be the better Ezreal deck. We'll have to see. So yeah, we already seen some shifts away from both Ezreal decks. There's still a lot of Karma stuff, there's a lot of the Demacia deck, and we'll see how things shake out in the next stager, but I'm not surprised that we're seeing a lot of shakeups here from last week, as I predicted. So yeah, as usual, let me know in the comments what you think, how you're perceiving the metagame right now as opposed to this. This data is already like 1.5 weeks old. Once again, we can only look at the past in a data-based analysis. And yeah, things remain interesting. There's still a lot of evolution for a single set new game and format, so that's pretty impressive. Things aren't maybe quite as settled as I thought and said last week in the metagame breakdown, but there's still a lot less change. Like, there's some change in the lists and in their popularity and performance, but not that much change in the format anymore. We saw like 2 big new decks, which is pretty impressive this late in the format, which is this Ezreal take and Rekindler, that both did well, became popular, and even third also really like hold their own and do well. So we'll see how these things will develop. But yeah, there seems to be more room still, and things a little less settled than I initially assumed. Index like War Matter Control that have been really popular have been really going down in popularity. So has the Barrier deck. And yeah, we'll see next week what is what. Until then, let me know in the comments what you think. Leave a like, share it with your friends, subscribe for more content in the future. Any interaction in addition to watching the content helps. You know how the YouTube algorithm reacts to anything, likes, comments, and so on. So fire away, make this blow up, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm your host, ManuS. Bye.